Hello, and welcome to the third episode of this series in which I am showcasing my tabletop role-playing game system called Parable. My name is Jacob Motl, and let us jump right into the story. It is just past sunset. Quinn and Daron stand in the middle of a walled courtyard of headstones. The grave in front of them has the symbol of Eldranoth, Lord of the Abyss. Quinn's eyes are wide with fear and horror. Daron looks down upon him and asks, "Why does this trouble you so?" And Quinn tells him, "I am a member of the Amethyst Order. It is our oath to stay watchful for any signs of the return of Eldranoth or his followers. We work largely in secret to safeguard the world against the return of the Abyss." And at that, I will have Daron make a knowledge roll to see if he has any familiarity or has even heard of the Amethyst Order. Ooh, natural 20. Yes, he is familiar. He has heard of the Amethyst Order. So Daron returns to Quinn. "Yes, I've heard of your order. I had no idea that you were part of it. I have never met anyone from the order, but I have heard of you. I have heard of your people and what you do in this world." And Daron pauses for a moment, thinking to himself, then asks the question, "Is this why you're here? This symbol? Is this why you're here? Are you here to seek out a potential return of the Abyss, of Eldranoth and his followers?" Quinn now pauses for a moment in a somber reflection, and then says, "Unfortunately, no. This is not what brings me here. My people were persecuted not even 2 weeks ago, and we had to flee, and I had to leave them behind. That is why I am traveling west. I'm hoping to meet them in the lands to the west of this region." And rather quickly, Daron says, "Say no more. As much as I can, I understand." Quinn says, "Thank you. I appreciate that. But we need to leave this place. This is a dark place." Daron agrees wholeheartedly, and as they get up to make their exit, the doors to the mausoleum open. Both Quinn and Daron quickly, upon hearing the doors open, dart out of sight behind a few of the larger tombstones nearby, and they watch as, one by one, single file, 12 hooded and cloaked figures emerge from the mausoleum. The figures make their way slowly, walking towards the gate, and the first one stops, noticing that the gates have been opened. The figure points ahead and turns behind to the other figures following. Quinn and Daron both exchange a quick, concerned glance at one another. They sit there motionless, in fear of being found, as they watch the first two of the cloaked figures. They make a very hurried exit out through the gates and past the wall into the wilderness. 5 of them start to fan out, searching the courtyard of the headstones, and the last 5 quickly make their way back into the mausoleum and shut the door behind them. So now let's see which way, we'll say the group of cloaked figures who are searching the grounds. They're going to stay within the courtyard for now, but let's see which way they start to search. Quinn and Daron are both in the southeastern part of the graveyard, ducking behind some of the tombstones. It's dark, so they have that to their advantage. Okay, I rolled a 5 on the direction, which is south. So the group of 5 all start to head south towards the gate, likely to inspect for any footprints, if they can tell if it's an animal, maybe a bear wandered in or something. Maybe a bear pushed the gate open, but they are also looking to see if it's any humanoid footprints. So Quinn and Daron are both going to certainly try to avoid detection, which means that they are going to move to their north, away from where the group of cloaked figures are searching. So for each of them, I'm going to make an agility roll for stealth, and we'll see what happens. Okay. Neither of them have a skill that is applicable, so They don't get any bonus for that. So for Quinn's roll, it is a 14 minus 1 for his agility, so a total of 13, which is a partial success. And Daron rolled a 6. He has a plus 1 for his agility, so that brings him to a 7, which would be a setback. However, in Parable, if you have any amount of XP, you can spend it to increase the result of your roll. Daron currently has 6 XP, and with that roll of 7, he will spend 3 XP to bump it up to a 10, which is a partial success. So now, after that, both Daron and Quinn have a partial success on trying to sneak north undetected. As they begin to move north up along the wall through the headstones, there is some debris, some rocks, maybe a couple vines that trip them up, and it causes their equipment to rattle a little bit, which the cloaked figures hear this, and they all start to move in that direction to the east. Quinn and Daron quickly duck behind another large tombstone. Quinn, as quietly as he can, leans into Daron and asks, "What are we going to do? How are we going to escape?" And Daron looks around at the walls surrounding them. He doesn't dare peek out from behind the tombstone, but he's looking up at the walls to see if there's anywhere they can maybe climb, or if there's maybe anywhere on the grounds where they can certainly conceal themselves for the time being. So I will have him make a focus roll, and he has the investigation skill, so he'll get a +2 bonus. And, another 6. So his focus is -1, so it is a 5, plus the 2 for his investigation, and that is a 7. Now he has 3 XP left that he could spend to bump it up to a partial success, and I think I will have him do that. So he is now at 0 XP, and he has a partial success to see if there's anywhere they can either climb to, escape, or hide behind. And he looks around. He looks up at the walls and does see that there is a patch of very thick ivy, but it is on the far side of the mausoleum from where they are. He can see it kind of winding up one of the crumbled towers of the wall. He also sees up along the outside, the walls of the mausoleum, there are several stone statues, kind of gargoyle-esque looking statues of, it looks to be some sort of a dragon or something, but there is certainly, from what he can tell, there should be space for them to hide behind and conceal themselves behind the wings of these stone creatures. Without saying anything to Quinn, he gets his attention and points to where they can go. And before they try to make any sort of a move to either the gargoyles or the ivy climbing up the wall, Daron grabs a small piece of rubble or rock that is laying next to him. He's going to toss it over behind him towards the gate as far as he can throw it from kind of where he's hiding. So I will have him make a missile roll. His missile is +0. Okay, he got an 11, which is a partial success. He lobs it as hard as he can over behind his shoulder, not looking too hard at where it's going to land. We'll say it lands with a thud and kind of rolls through that. There's that patch of dirt and gravel going from the main gate up to the mausoleum, and it lands kind of in the middle of that. Let's see if the cloaked figures notice this at all. I will say, since the only thing that's really making noise right now would be the metal and granite bone chimes, as well as the breeze and just any reverberant sounds of nature that are coming from outside of the walls. So I will say it's likely that they notice the sound of the stone hitting the gravel. Yeah, they definitely hear it. So all of them, quickly upon hearing that, turn and beeline over to where this stone landed. Now Daron is going to grab another piece of stone laying nearby, and this time, after hearing the cloaked figures shuffle over there in a hurry, he's going to make a much more concentrated and intentional throw towards the gate, hoping to hit the gate to make it rattle or creak and really get their attention. So for this one, since he is really trying to be intentional about where he's throwing it and how hard he's throwing it, I'm going to have him make a focus roll, and he has the athletics skill, so that will be a +2. Okay, his focus is -1. I rolled a 7, so that brings him down to 6. +2 for the athletics brings him up to an 8. So that is a setback, and he has no more XP to spend to increase it, unfortunately. I will mark the 1 XP for this setback. Now, what happens? He peeks up from behind the tombstone with the rock in hand and goes to throw it. Just as he does, he looses a little early, and instead of the stone hurling through the air towards the gate, it only goes about halfway, landing between where Quinn and Daron are hiding and where the cloaked figures are standing. And the stone lands, rolling right up to where they all are standing. They all stop and just look down and then look over in the direction of where it came from, and they immediately start to come over. Now at this point, Daron has, just as he loosed the rock from his grip, when he knew that it was not going to be a good throw, he darted back down behind the tombstone. Both he and Quinn hear the cloaked figures moving towards them. Daron leans in close to Quinn and says in a very hushed tone, "I will distract them. You need to run. You need to escape. You're going to run over to that ivy, and you are going to climb it, and you are going to escape from this place. I will join you if I can. If I can't, then you run." And just before Quinn begins to protest, Daron stands up from behind the tombstone and yells at the cloaked figures, "Come and get me. I'm right here." And he runs south away from where Quinn is still hiding. Quinn hears one of the cloaked figures yell out something in a language that he is not familiar with, but sounds evil to his ears. And he hears all of the cloaked figures running in the direction that Daron left. And in a wave of fear and adrenaline, Quinn gets up and makes a sprint to the wall with the ivy. Now, do any of the cloaked figures hear or otherwise notice Quinn running through? Because he's not trying to be sneaky about it. He's just mad sprinting across the courtyard. So we'll say, since their attention is drawn to Daron, it is unlikely that any of them notice, but we will make a roll for that. Yeah, 13, so they do not notice Quinn at all. So easy enough for Quinn. He darts over to the ivy and begins climbing his way up. So that will be, we'll say that is a might roll. His might is -3. Okay, 16 minus 3, 13. So that is a partial success. So Quinn struggles at first to get a good handhold and a good foothold on the ivy. It's a bit slippery, but he does eventually kind of get a hold on it and starts to climb his way up. And about halfway up the wall, Quinn takes a quick glance back at Daron, where he is and what he's doing, if he's okay. Quinn sees Daron running towards the gate, calling over his shoulder, kind of taunting and goading the cloaked figures to follow him. And I will have Quinn also make a focus roll to see if he notices any specific details. Ooh, natural 1, no. Since it's now after sunset, he does not see anything other than the dark silhouette of Daron running towards the gate, and then the dark silhouettes of the cloaked figures chasing him. Quinn then turns his attention back to what he's doing in the moment, climbing the rest of the way up. And I will make another might roll for Quinn for the last half. Alright, natural 20. In the flurry of adrenaline, he is able to quickly make his way up to the remains of this tower. It's not much higher than just kind of the normal wall, but he makes his way up safely, and he is able to find a stable enough spot where he can kind of crouch and hide and see what happens to Daron. So I'm going to roll now. Was Daron able to make it out of the gate and into the wilderness? We'll say 50-50 on that. 29. He was not able to. And why would that be? I think Daron likely was or is waiting for Quinn to make it all the way up. He wanted to make sure that Quinn was able to escape without being detected. So Daron, instead of risking leaving through the gate and then maybe some of the cloaked figures staying back to make sure that there aren't more intruders, he likely is still just running around the cemetery to hold their attention. So with Quinn watching, we will make a focus roll for Daron to see if he notices whether or not Quinn has escaped. And Daron does have the investigation skill. However, I think in this moment that wouldn't apply because he doesn't have time necessarily to make a proper investigation, as it were. So it'll just be his focus roll. And got a 9. -1 for his focus, so that is an 8, so that is a setback. He does not notice whether or not Quinn, he doesn't get a chance, I would say, to notice whether or not Quinn has escaped. I will mark an XP for Daron as he continues to goad and taunt the cloaked figures around the courtyard, the cemetery. And I think I will have Daron make an agility roll with his athletics skill to see if he is successful in avoiding being captured by the cloaked figures. Ooh, okay. So rolled a 5 plus his 1 for agility plus his 2 for athletics, which is applicable here. So for a total of 8. He does have 2 XP, and I think now is a good time to use that. So his total is a 10 after using his XP, so a partial success. Quinn watches on as Daron runs around the cemetery, coaxing the cloaked figures to follow him, and a few times he is very close to getting captured by them as they kind of fan out and try to corral him, but he does escape every time so far. Now Quinn, staying hidden on the top of this semi-ruined tower, he's watching down on Daron and trying to think of a way to signal to Daron that he is safe, at least for the moment. And he takes out his lantern and his oil and a little piece of flint to kind of start it, and he shines his lantern from where he's hiding, hoping that he grabs Daron's attention. He's even going to kind of, with his hand, try to flash kind of Morse code in a way to flicker the light so that it's more noticeable to Daron. So he is going. I'm going to have Daron make a focus roll. All right, rolled a 19, -1 for his focus. That's okay. It is still a success. So as Daron's running around, he gets to a spot just after narrowly avoiding capture yet again. He looks up and he sees the flickering light from Quinn's lantern. They are chasing him from the north, so he is able to make a clear dash towards the front gate, which he is going to do so. I'm going to have him make another agility roll with his athletics skill. Oh, natural 1. That is a critical setback. So I will mark his 2 XP. So Daron starts to bolt for the front gates of this walled cemetery, but he isn't mindful of his footing and he completely trips, falls prone to the ground, As the cloaked figures all catch up to him and grab him, lift him up, Quinn watches in horror as his new companion is lifted up and taken by the cloaked figures. They head towards the mausoleum as Quinn can hear its great stone doors opening. The cloaked figures make their way into the mausoleum, holding Daron prisoner, and Quinn hears the stone doors shut behind them. And thus concludes episode 3 of this Parable demo series. So first for XP, Quinn gains 1 for surviving this session, and Daron gains 1 as well because he isn't dead, he's only captured. Now for strands, there are a few that we can add now. First one, most prominently for Quinn, is to save Daron from the mausoleum. So we can add that to our list of strands. We can also add a strand to learn about the cemetery, what it is, why it's there, what its history might be, and maybe how it's still currently used. Another strand is to learn about the cloaked figures. So we kind of have a thread going there for the cemetery. We want to learn about the cemetery, what it is, what its purpose is. We also want to learn about the cloaked figures, who they are, and why they're inhabiting this cemetery. We also want to save Daron from the mausoleum and from the cloaked figures. And finally, kind of the last strand is to escape the cemetery. So each of those 4 strands are woven together in kind of this same narrative thread that's happening. Please tune in next week for the 4th episode to find out what Quinn chooses to do. If he chooses to escape, if he chooses to infiltrate the mausoleum, try to find Daron and try to uncover some of the mysteries surrounding this place and the hooded, cloaked figures that are currently inhabiting it. Thank you for watching.